This week on Capitol Report, new campaign ads dropped from Governor Lamont.
A balanced budget, lower taxes. Our state is strong and getting stronger.
Just doing my workout. Tuesday's arms and back.
While a GOP Super PAC ad punches back.
Ned Lamont needs to come clean.
Hey, bubbles, man!
Plus, the State Bond Commission opens up the pocketbook.
The good news is, I think, the state has momentum. Our economy is growing.
What's bonding for in an election year but not to give out goodies to people?
The NCAA tournament, once again, raising the question, is it time to start paying college athletes?
Students are getting wise to this scam.
And you, I will not be made a fool of.
And who doesn't love a good Richard Nixon impersonation on a Sunday morning?
I am not a crook.
Capitol Report starts now.
I'm not a crook.
Welcome to Capitol Report. I am Tom Dutchigan. We are so glad you are spending part of this great Sunday morning alongside our panel. Joe Arison was former Democratic Speaker of the House. Welcome, Joe.
It's good to be back.
All right, Johnny Mack, former Minority Leader of the State Senate. Welcome back.
Good to be back. Ready to go.
All right, guys, let's get it, guys. Today is April 3rd, and we are just over 7 months away from Election Day. In case you're keeping track at home, Election Day, November 8th. Mark your calendars. So far, 2022 campaign season been a little quiet affair. Governor Lamont has laid low doing his governor things, while presumptive GOP frontrunner Bob Stefanowski been rolling out TV ads at a pretty steady clip. But now, the Nedster getting up in the game, and last week, Lamont campaign dropped their first 30-second spot, calling it Have It All. Let's take a look, shall we? Go ahead.
For years, politicians couldn't get it done. Balance the budget without raising taxes. As a businessman, I knew we could prove them wrong. We turned a massive budget deficit into a $3 billion surplus, while investing in schools, health care, and public safety. And now we're cutting your car tax and gas tax. A balanced budget, lower taxes. Our state is strong and getting stronger. I'm Ned Lamont, and I approve this message.
All right, guys, goody gumdrops. First week of April, we have a governor's campaign going on here. At least he's not talking to himself in a diner, Johnny Mack, or driving a car by himself, right? talking to, like, you know, who knows what.
You know, maybe I'm the only one. I thought the ad that candidate Ned Lamont did 4 years ago, where he was in the car, was one of the better political ads I've ever seen. So I hold him to a high standard. This ad to me looks really rushed, like it was put together last minute to get on air early because of this attack ad being done by the Super PAC. Very surprised that Mark Pasniokis and Keith Fannin from the Connecticut Mirror came out and said, you know what, Governor's got some truth to this ad, but some things that aren't true. The budget is balanced, but he did raise taxes to balance the budget. We did get $6 billion from the federal government. And the bigger issue is, yes, things are getting better, but even the governor's office and OPM are still showing deficits into the future. So, look, it's to me, I would say the governor, your initial ads 4 years ago looked like a fresh outsider. This kind of looked a little bit like a typical politician ad.
Yeah, Joe, so he didn't have to introduce himself to the voters. So what was the plan with this ad?
I think it's just to reinforce all the things he's been talking about already. I mean, let's think about what he did. He did push back on a Democratic-controlled legislature when they wanted to raise taxes, even this year, and the year before, and the year before. He talked to businesses around the state and talked about the steps he was going to do to improve the business climate. That's proven out, and our rankings have jumped. So I think it's just reinforcing it. Sometimes people forget it's the last thing you do is what they remember the most. So, you know, maybe it was the gas tax, maybe it was the COVID, maybe it was, but let's reintroduce. Let's talk about the good things that he talked about 4 years ago, and he's kept his word. No new taxes, increase our business climate in the state, and welcome new businesses. All check.
So as Johnny Mack mentioned, another ad dropped on social media last week. This one wasn't from a candidate, but from a super PAC called CT Truth. It takes some pretty big swings at the governor on a theme built around transparency and truth on the heels of the ongoing FBI investigation into the school construction contracts that were overseen by the now fired state budget official Costas Demontis. Let's roll that tape. Watch this.
The FBI is investigating how the Lamont administration spent state money.
The federal government is now investigating whether any of these no-bid contracts involve corruption
or favoritism.
More than $1 billion at stake. Municipalities pressured to hire contractors. And Governor Lamont's people knew about it a year before the feds announced their investigation. Ned Lamont needs to come clean. This message was paid for by CT TruthPAC, Inc. and made independent of any candidate or political party.
Well, Joe, as we said, these ads write themselves. Take it apart.
Yeah, look, it's not really accurate. They didn't know about it a year in advance. But the biggest problem is these super PACs and these people that come in and start doing this. And I know it's not in concert with any campaign. But if you believe it, you believe in what you're saying, put your name up there so we can question you. These super PACs, the funding of the super PACs, I've been against it forever. I know super PACs have tried to work on behalf of the Connecticut legislature, the Democrats, and I've disavowed it and said it's not. If we have something to say, we're going to put our name on it. So I just hate the whole super PAC thing. And if you're going to talk about things, at least get them factually accurate. But that doesn't have to happen in campaign ads, I guess.
Yeah, and I said I didn't love the governor's first ad. I don't really think this is a very good ad either. Super PACs are here to stay. The Democrats use them, the Republicans use them. The super PACs do the negative stuff and the candidates do the positive stuff. Everybody kind of should know that. The reason why I don't love this ad, though, is look, there is a federal investigation into the administration, not the governor himself, but it is his administration, into huge spending programs. School construction, which is one of the biggest spending programs we have in the state pier in New London. Those are actually really serious things. The fact that there's a grand jury investigating is a big deal. I don't think it's something you make into a dark, grainy attack ad. I think it's something, though, you have to have a serious conversation about.
Yeah, and having that conversation, and obviously I've said it before, right? You're limited on what the administration can say. They're talking to the federal officials, I would imagine. They're saying you don't say too much. Things will happen. They'll happen on their own. We don't need these outside, quote, independent voices just coming in, dropping tons of money to tell us what to think.
Yeah, I think the governor's office could be a little more proactive with some of the issues regarding transparency, responding to some press freedom of information requests, and maybe they wouldn't be as pressed as hard if they did that.
All right, guys, so, well, a little return to normalcy at the state capitol. Last week, the State Bond Commission getting together in person for the first time in a long time, and the money was a-flowing, $600 million in approved projects. That's an election year, so some cities and towns that were trying to get pet projects approved got their wishes granted. Watch this.
I think people are always going to look at this, particularly people like us, with a somewhat cynical point of view. On the other hand, I know for those towns that have advocated for this, it can really be a game changer. I know one of my colleagues, Brian Lanou, this is a senior center that they've been advocating for years. And, you know, what's bonding for in an election year but not to give out goodies to people?
The good news is, I think, the state has momentum. Our economy is growing and continuing to grow, and that allows us to make some of the investments in the Bond Commission in a way that will make a big difference for the state going forward.
Well, guys, you know, Holly said the quiet part out loud, as they said. Joe, how would you like to have this kind of budget and these kind of numbers to hand out when you were there? Oh, yeah, it's vastly different. You know, I essentially say that we filled up the piggy bank, and now the piggy bank is going out, as it should. And I just have to say, Representative Cheeseman really is turning into a great legislator. I worked with her briefly, but she really is a great person and doing a great job up there.
Yeah, I agree. She's not been there a long time, and she's really risen in the ranks of respect among everybody. Really bright legislator. Look, this is normal course of business. A lot of these projects are very good projects. You know, I always had my constituents who'd say, why are you guys spending all this? Why are you fighting for this money? I said, because it's going to be spent, so I'm going to fight for my towns. That's what a good legislator is supposed to do. You know, I would say, though, it's an election year. You know, I loved Governor Lamont's first term when he talked about being on a debt diet. Most of us said it's not going to be possible. The legislators are going to want this stuff. We're no longer on the debt diet. We're about 80% of our bond cap. I guess the question I would ask Joe, because he was on the inside of all this stuff, is the timing is interesting.
Very
right,
odd.
Joe? Because
a month left in the session,
because
right?
usually as governor, you wait until after the session's over so you can dangle these goodies to get your agenda passed. Why do you think it happened now?
I just think it really is. The election year is coming up. If you do it in June, it's going to be even louder that it was election year spending. I think these projects were needed. The Democrat, Republican, senator, representatives alike needed the money into their districts for the good causes. And I think it does help move the agenda of the legislature. You have a budget that's coming up. The legislature itself, the Democratic-controlled Appropriations Committee, has some really big ideas of how they're going to spend it. And I'm sure the governor's office is saying, hey, wait a minute, I hear you, but we wanted, the negotiations will happen. And this was an important step in it. But it wasn't political favors, right? Republicans and Democrats alike all got projects.
Absolutely. There were Republican projects here. This is not that. But I think I just heard the former speaker say that if there's another bond meeting in, say, June or maybe September of an election year, that would be seen as being too political. We'll see.
Well, maybe a week before Election Day is too political.
I can see a September bond meeting. That's what I'm thinking.
All right, guys. So up next on Cap Report, a former Connecticut Secretary of the State who was making the case for universal voting. Why is this such a big deal? We'll catch up with our pal Miles Rappaport when we get back. Don't go away.